Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode counting down Mate Nason's top 100 games of all time that I love to play. Well, after counting through 80 games that were just utter garbage, we have finally reached the creme de la creme, my top 20 best games of all time. So let's jump into the good stuff. Starting at number 20, we've got another game by Alexander Pfister. He, of course, is famous for Great Western Trail, which appeared earlier on my list, as well as other games like Maracaibo, Blackout Hong Kong. But this game is my favorite Pfister game, and that is Mombasa. In Mombasa, you are playing as investors. This is probably my favorite stock market-ish exchange game. And you are playing as investors investing in 4 different companies in Africa. You don't have to invest in just one. You can invest in any number of them. And what you are doing is taking one of several actions a turn. Invest in a company. You can take that company and build trading posts in different regions to gain bonus actions. And every trade post you build increases the value of the shares. You can never sell shares in your company. You're always just buying shares in these different companies. And at the end of the game, those shares are going to be worth points based on how many trade posts that are built. But not only is this an economic or a stock game, what this game has is a beautiful area control game. Because as you're building those trading posts, you can also build them over other companies' trading posts, effectively knocking them out, reducing their shares, increasing your shares. So you have to watch what other people are doing because you can manipulate through that area control game ways to influence the values of other people's shares. That is beautiful. But not only that, this game's got a third thing going for it, and that is it's a beautiful hand management game. You'll simultaneously lay down these cards that will be your actions during the turn. You'll lay them down this little tableau, and then you all flip them over and then take the actions on those cards. But instead of them all getting discarded to your own personal discard pile, they each get discarded to an individual discard pile. So you'll have 3 to 5 discard piles. And at the end of your turn, you don't get all the discard piles back. You have to choose one. So you're also playing this little mini game of these cards in front of you, deciding where to lay the cards down, where to discard them, which piles to take back. Then you're playing the stock market game of investing in companies, and then you're also playing this area control game, moving these trading huts around. Those 3 things come together to make Mombasa one of my favorite games. My number 20 came out in 2015. It's currently ranked 86 on BoardGameGeek.com. Moving on to my number 19 game, we have Terraforming Mars. This game is actually more of a card game than a board game. There's a central board where you'll play this area control game as you're trying to build greeneries and cities and oceans on on Mars as you're terraforming it. But the beauty of this game comes in its drafting mechanics. There is a deck of hundreds upon hundreds of cards that you will draft from around the table with all the players, building this engine in front of you, this tableau of different cards that interact in very interesting ways. And that is the beauty of the game, is uncovering these combos, finding out neat ways these cards work together in order to achieve your goal of terraforming Mars, of building those oceans, of those greeneries, raising the temperature. You also have this little mini production board in front of you as you're moving your credits around, your greenhouse credits around, your heat cubes around. So it's just this fascinating game. It's a beautifully done card game where all these cards interlock so well. That is Terraforming Mars. It's ranked number 4 on Board Game Geek. Came out in 2016, but it's my number 19. A wonderful game. Moving on to number 18 is a game that used to be in my top 5. This game is the Game of Thrones board game. Came out in 2011. It's ranked 132 on Board Game Geek. This is a game from Fantasy Flight by Christian T. Peterson. And if you are a fan of the fantasy genre, if you are a fan of George R.R. Martin's books, Game of Thrones is probably one of the best games that really bring that theme out. You really feel like you are playing one of the houses of Game of Thrones, and you feel like you are in that story. The game itself is actually very reminiscent of games like Risk or Diplomacy. It's an area control game where you're building armies, moving armies around, attacking other armies, all in trying to capture these strongholds. First player to get 10 strongholds, I think it's 10, is the winner. But the beauty of this game comes in simultaneously giving orders to all your armies. Everyone has these tokens that tell their armies to reinforce or to support or to recruit or to attack. And you can talk with your neighbors, plan out how you want to do things, maybe decide who the leader is that you need to gang up on. And then everybody secretly and simultaneously puts these tokens down to give orders to their little armies. And when everyone's ready, you flip them all over and then you finally see what everyone did. And maybe that neighbor who told you he was going to help attack across the board didn't help you and instead ordered his troops to attack you. It's a great game of negotiation, of backstabbing, of planning. If you like that type of rich strategy game, the Game of Thrones board game is the game for you. My number 18. Moving on, we got my number 17 game, another Dudes on the Map game, and this is Inis. Came out in 2016. It is ranked 107 on BoardGameGeek.com. In Inis, it's a card drafting Dudes on a Map game. It is this game set in, I believe it's Ireland and Gaelic folklore. It's got beautiful art on its cards. The board is built as you're exploring this island. Beautifully illustrated tiles as you're doing that. And what you do is you draft these cards that are basically your actions, whether it's moving your troops around or attacking or recruiting more troops or building buildings. You have this common set of cards of actions and you draft them around to kind of choose the cards you want to get your objective done that turn. This game has a very interesting mechanic of not only sharing these action cards and drafting them, is the win condition is so unique in this game. You have 3 different win conditions. You could win by controlling territories or win by just spreading your people out or win by controlling a certain amount of buildings. But before you can win the game, as your whole action, you have to take your turn and say, I'm about ready to win. And you have to announce that to the board. There are, I don't think any other games I'm aware of where you have to do that. Tell everyone that you're going to win, and that's your whole turn. And when you do that, everybody all of a sudden zeroes in on you. They try to get their own win conditions to stop you from winning, or maybe they try to get in the way of you winning. It's not a game where you can sneak in and steal that victory. You have to really lock it in. Beautiful game that is Inis, my number 17. Going on to number 16, we kind of see a theme here, another war game. And I'm not typically a war game or area control fan, but what I love about these games are the very unique ways that they implement this Dudes on a Map theme. And this game is my number 16. It is Shogun. Came out in 2006, currently ranked 192 on BoardGameGeek. What Shogun does that really puts this Dudes on a Map game on its head is you are vying for control of these regions in feudal samurai era Japan. And your player board are your actions. I believe there's 10 different spots on your player board with actions like attack, recruit, tax, move, things like that. And what you do is as you're taking over these regions, you take their region card and you lay those cards face down on your action board. So nobody knows what action you're taking in what region. Are you going to attack here? Are you going to reinforce here? And so on. So you're playing this almost like a shell game of putting these cards down secretly so no one knows where you're going to be doing anything. There's even bluffing cards, so you could put down a blank card over attack, and maybe you're not even going to attack this turn. And then it does an even more interesting twist. Instead of just revealing those cards face up and everybody taking their actions, on the central board are cards of those 10 actions, 5 face up and 5 face down. And so you know the order, everybody knows the order of the first 5 actions that are going to happen this turn, but nobody knows in what order those last 5 are going to happen. Are you going to recruit before you attack? Are you going to build before you tax? So it creates this excitement, this tense, it builds this tenseness as you're flipping those cards over to see what action is going to happen next. And then everybody flips over their card and you see what region everyone is doing that in. And then probably one of the funnest things about this game is that the combat is just so simple. There's this tower, and you just grab all the cubes of everybody's armies representing all the people fighting in this region, and you just drop them in this tower, and whoever has the most cubes fall out the bottom wins. The tower will eat up some of the cubes, so you never know what number is going to fall out of the bottom. And so it's just so exciting to watch that, to get to drop those cubes. That is Shogun, my number 16, an excellently done dudes on a map game. My number 15 is a one versus many game, and that is Fury of Dracula, the third edition. This came out in 2015, currently ranked 219 on Board Game Geek. Spectre Ops had already shown up earlier on my list. Fury of Dracula is a very similar game to that, where one person is hiding and running around the map, Dracula, trying to spread their evil influence through Europe, where the other four players are playing as famous characters from the novel, trying to find and kill Dracula. One reason this game is ranked a little bit higher on my list than Spectre Ops, where Spectre Ops does play faster and is a little simpler in that regard, Fury of Dracula is just dripping with theme. You really feel like you are Dracula, or you really feel like you are the Hunter Van Helsing as you're trying to collect these cards to prepare for your battle, or as you are trying to misdirect them as Dracula. It plays in a lot longer time than other games of this genre. It would probably be a little bit higher on my list. It used to be in my top 10, but that time commitment does knock it down a little bit for what it is. But what it is great. There's probably not a better thematic game in this genre of one versus many than Fury of Dracula, my number 15. Number 14 comes to us with another economic game, and that is Brass, Lancaster Edition. In Lancaster, Brass originally came out in 2007, reprinted in 2019, and they also came with the new game Brass Birmingham, but I love the Lancaster version. This game is ranked 19 on BoardGameGeek.com, and what's great about the Brass Lancaster Edition is it's such a tight game. You're playing a hand management game where you are playing these cards that might show a cotton mill, and so you'll build a cotton mill, or maybe a card that shows a coal mine. You're building these coal mines. But you also have to discard these same cards in order to take generic actions, like taking out a loan so you have more money to build these things. You have to discard a card from your hand. So do you discard that cotton mill? Do you discard that coal mine? Do you want to sell your goods at market to get more money? Well, you have to discard one of those cards then. So every action you're taking is discarding a card from your hand, whether you're using it for its printed action or whether you're doing one of the generic actions. The board is so tight as well. There's not enough rail networks for everyone to get into where they need to go. There's not enough cotton mills or iron mines or coal mines to get everything you need, so you're gonna have to use other people's resources. So you are just fighting on this board for this area you control, fighting on this board to get these railroad networks built to your shipping hubs. And the tightness of that game, along with the tightness of your hand, just really makes this game shine. My number 14. Number 13, we see another Matt Garrett's game. I believe this is my highest Matt Garrett's game, and that is Concordia. Another theme that you're probably seeing in this specific top 10 list is hand management, and Concordia is no exception. The theme in this game is very generic. You're just trading in the Mediterranean, but what this game does is it's really a game of chaining actions together with these cards in your hand. Your cards in your hand have actions like move your worker, build a trading post, trade your goods, buy more cards. Very simple actions, but by chaining them together to get that money, to get those goods, to build those trading posts, and using your hand as efficiently as possible, that is the beauty of this game. It also adds another little twist in there. The very cards that you're buying, the very cards that you're chaining together, are also your scoring cards. They give you points for controlling regions or having so many goods of a certain type. And so as you're buying these cards from this market in order to get more actions to do these things you need to do, you also have to pay attention to the scoring of the cards. What are these cards going to give you? So that two-faceted approach, as well as managing your hand, as well as this little area control game on the map, all of that comes together in such a beautiful symphony. and that is why Concordia is my number 13, currently ranked number 18 on BoardGameGeek.com. Number 12 is a worker placement game from Uwe Rosenberg, and this is my highest Uwe game, and that is A Feast for Odin. A Feast for Odin is a beast of a worker placement game. Looking at that action selection board on the center of the table can really cause some analysis paralysis for some people. But once you kind of see how these actions flow together, this game is so streamlined. It's probably it's my favorite Uwe game. I think it's his greatest game that he has made. You're playing as Vikings, and you're doing very traditional things of gathering resources, building ships to raid, building ships to go trade. But where this game comes into a very interesting twist is all those goods and things that you're trading or collecting or building and foraging are these little polyomino pieces. And on your personal player board, you have this huge grid of negative points. And you need to play this game of Tetris to get all these polyominoes to cover up those negative points. And as you're doing that, you are unlocking bonuses, you're gaining more income so that you can take better actions. And then at the end of the game, hopefully you've covered up all of those negative points with these polyominoes, and then you get to do your final scoring. Every round, classic Uwe, you have to feed your workers. But this has another interesting twist where you can have your Vikings emigrate, so you have to have less food for them, and so you can get great points by emigrating the Vikings. Wonderful game, probably the best solo worker placement game I've ever played as well. And that is A Feast for Odin, currently ranked number 21 on Board Game Geek, my number 12. The last game to talk about today is my number 11, and that is Anachrony. Anachrony came out in 2017 from Mindclash Games, currently ranked number 47 on Board Game Geek. Anachrony is another worker placement game where you are picking a faction and sending your workers out to this central board. You are also sending them out there to build buildings that you will build on your personal board, so you have these actions set up just for yourself. And you're doing all of this in order to prepare to evacuate the planet. You have gotten news from the future that an asteroid is coming, and so you know what goods and resources you need to set up for your evacuation. The interesting twist of Anachrony, and one reason that I really love it, is you're dealing with this time travel mechanic. You can borrow goods from the future, use them now, and then in a later turn, you are building time machines to send them back in time. And so you are managing this resource of lend and lease. You are also managing your own player board of these buildings you're building, giving you access to greater actions. And to go out to the central board, you can't just send your workers out there. You're also managing these power suits. You need to power up these suits for your workers to go. It also has a twist where your workers come back asleep. And so as your workers go out and take actions, they come back tired, and you need to wake them up and refresh them. So there are just so many little engines that are always running in this game, and lots of different economies that you need to manage. The central board is really tight. There is not enough places for all the players out there. So you really need to start building your own personal board. All these things come together to make a beautiful worker placement game with a beautiful theme, very well done, and that is Anachrony, my number 11. So we've done it. We've counted down 100 to 11. We only have 10 more to go. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what games on this list or any of my lists you like, you think should have been higher. And we'll be back with my top 10 coming up pretty soon. So stay tuned.